Your iPhone has been spying on you, and it's not the only one.
Apple has recently agreed to settle $95 million for its voice-activated digital assistant, Siri, that has been listening in your private and confidential conversations without your explicit consent and authorization. In the class action suit, the plaintiffs allege that Siri listened in on private conversations even if you didn't trigger its wake phrase, "Hey Siri," or through manual activation by pressing the home button. Not only was Siri listening in your conversations, but it was also disclosing that information to third parties, including advertisers, allegedly, who thereafter bombarded users with personalized ads of what Siri overheard in what is termed psychographic marketing. Apple did admit to disclosing such data to third parties, but they stated that they only disclosed to contractors, that is humans, who could review that information to assess whether Siri was listening to private conversations when it was not activated, and only disclose such data to contractors to improve the functionality and performance of Siri. However, a whistleblower in 2019 revealed in a published Guardian article that these contractors could also listen in to private conversations, which included intimate moments with your partner, communications with your doctor, business deals, and more importantly, it also listened in on criminal dealings such as drug transactions. The worst part about it is that these audio recordings could reveal location data, contact details, which would make it easy for them to identify a person. This is despite Apple's terms of service and privacy policy stating that Apple only listened in on conversations when Siri was activated, and that the disclosure of such info to third parties was to improve functionality and that the contractors adhere to strict confidentiality agreements. Apple has, however, denied that they shared personal data with advertisers who targeted consumers with advertisements without their knowledge or consent. Apple, however, isn't the only culprit, as Google's voice assistant is currently facing a class action suit for non-consensual audio recording of its consumers and disclosing that info to third parties such as contractors for performance review and advertisers allegedly who targeted consumers with ads. Interestingly, Google patented a technology recently which could detect and transmit sounds of alarms such as breaking glass or sounds of a fire alarm, and the tech would be applied in Google smart home devices including Google Assistant. Subsequently, Google partnered with ADT in an operation dubbed "Your Home Will Hear You" as part of a home security initiative. In 2020, Google invested allegedly $450 million. This technology alerted users through a notification on their phone when Google Assistant detected
A smoke alarm or glass breaking,
with Reddit users sharing the text messages they received. In Google's class action suit, the plaintiffs also claim that Google recorded, disclosed children's private communication without Google Assistant activation and also without their parents' consent and authorization. This is because technically children do not have the legal capacity to consent, and this comes against a backdrop of Google being fined $170 million for its YouTube platform in 2019 for violating Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act by illegally collecting children's personal information without their parents' consent. Now, according to the class action suit, Google has already admitted that its Google Assistant-enabled devices experience what they call false accepts, which is where these devices automatically begin recording conversations despite the user not using the activation word "Hey Google" or "Okay Google," or even manually turning on these devices. Now on to the next. The third culprit is Amazon's voice assistant Alexa and Ring, its home security camera. According to the FTC, Amazon's Alexa recorded and collected vast data from its users, including children's voice recordings and geolocation data that allegedly was used for financial gain. Amazon failed to disclose to its consumers that it was recording such sensitive data, especially for children, without their parent consent. In Amazon's defense, they claimed that they retained children's voice recordings in order to train its algorithm to respond to voice commands and improve Alexa's speech recognition. Following numerous complaints, Amazon failed to delete children's data until the FTC entered into a settlement agreement with Amazon to delete inactive child accounts, to delete certain voice recordings and geolocation information. Amazon was also required to pay a $25 million fine that was used as consumer refund. FTC also fined Amazon $5.6 million for Ring, its home security cameras, for allowing its employees to spy on consumers, private home videos, and intimate spaces such as bedroom. Amazon had failed to adequately notify or obtain explicit consent from its consumers for the use of their private videos recordings for various purposes, such as to train the algorithm. Further, Amazon did not inform consumers that its employees were accessing inappropriate private videos of consumers. Furthermore, the company wasn't able to determine how many employees had accessed intimate videos of its consumers, obviously without their consent. Amazon defended themselves by claiming that they had the right to use the recordings obtained in connection with the services for product improvement and development as spelled out in their terms of service and privacy policy. However, the FTC rebuffed these claims and claimed that Ring failed to implement basic measures to monitor and detect employees' access to private and confidential home videos to avoid breach of privacy. According to the FTC, Ring faced two major cyber threats that have gained notoriety in the cyber dark world, that is, credential stuffing and brute force attacks. Credential stuffing is a type of automated cyber attack that uses malicious bots which hackers with access to stolen or leaked usernames and passwords use in their attempts to fraudulently gain access to the user's other online accounts. This cyber attack relies on users who reuse the same username or password to log into other online accounts. So if you have a Facebook account, don't use the same username and password for Instagram or any other social media platform or website. The second attack is a brute force, which credential stuffing can fall under. However, brute force attacks are a cyber hacking method that uses trial and error to crack passwords, login credentials, and encryption keys. Basically, the hackers use bots to guess usernames and passwords by testing a combination of numbers, words. So don't use a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 password, because the hackers will try it to gain unauthorized access to your network, account, or systems. It's been reported that 55,000 US customers had their Ring cameras hacked, and the hackers had access to their account profiles and videos, including the intimate ones, which resulted in users of Ring facing harassment, threats, insults if they didn't pay a ransom to these hackers, possibly so that the hackers would not share their private and confidential videos. In April 2024, following a settlement in 2023, the FTC ordered Amazon to delete customers' videos, face embedding, and also pay a $5.6 million fine, which would end up in consumer refunds to 117,000 people who had been affected by this breach of privacy. Now, this video isn't made to demonize big tech or the voice assistants, as millions of people use these devices even for home security purposes, and users technically consent to have their audio recorded so that these voice assistants can perform the tasks they have been commanded. However, these big tech companies have flouted the purpose limitation data privacy principle by recording, storing, and disclosing private conversations that were unnecessary for the performance of these voice assistant devices without the consent or authorization of the consumers, given that these voice assistant devices were recording even without activation. Further, disclosing such private confidential information to third parties, whether it's contractors or advertisers, without adequately informing users of the purpose is incompatible with the legitimate use for such devices. Moreover, such invasion of privacy and eavesdropping is against the law, as it deprives consumers of their legitimate and reasonable expectation of privacy. It's also against public policy to record and disclose children's data. Moreover, most of these lawsuits were filed in California, which requires a two-party consent before recording private conversations. Furthermore, the interception of oral communication without explicit consent or adequately notifying consumers of the legitimate purpose or processing procedure of such data is against the Wiretap Act, and the storage of such data in Google servers violated the Stored Communications Act. These are all laws in the US. In addition, these big tech companies breached contract with its consumers, as to use these devices you must sign up and agree to the terms of service and privacy policy. However, the lawsuit revealed that these big tech companies misrepresented whether their voice assistant listened in on conversations without activation. Further, they also alleged that these big tech companies changed the way they collected info from their users without their knowledge and consent. Lastly, the lawsuits claim that these big tech companies engaged in unfair competition by intercepting, recording, and disclosing private confidential conversations to third parties, allegedly to advertisers for their financial gain. Also, they engage in unfair competition by using private conversations to train their AI algorithms without adequately informing the consumers and obtaining explicit consent, and that these deceptive practices made these big tech companies a monopoly. Further, that the harm they caused the consumers through breach of privacy and cyber attacks outweighed any benefit that these big tech companies provided to their consumers. Now, your voice is your biometric personal data, which can be used to first and foremost identify you by age, gender, ethnicity, race, location, and even reveal your medical condition, such as Parkinson's disease. And such personal data can be used nefariously to build marketing profiles for target advertisement. Your personal data can also be used politically to profile you and influence your vote. And also, scammers can use your data to wipe your bank account clean and also use your personal data to scam other people. Secondly, your voice can also be used to authenticate you by replacing traditional security measures such as PINs and passwords in digital banking and phone authentication. Despite this cybersecurity measure, hackers can use AI to clone your voice for fraudulent purposes such as romance scams, which is whereby if you're a high-profile person, scammers will impersonate you and prey on vulnerable, lonely people, then defraud them of their money. However, all is not lost. This is because tech companies give users control by giving them an opt-out feature which enables users to control which data is being processed. So one, the users can disable this voice assistants. They can also delete request history and transcripts. Users can also restrict the ability to use this voice assistants through content or download restrictions and privacy settings. Further, users can also have control over which third-party apps have access to this voice assistants, and they can also limit the access and share of information of this personal data. And lastly, users can also turn off location services and turn off syncing with other devices.